Okay, so is the screen currently being projected? Yes. Okay. Turn it off or just give me a minute to describe something else.
Okay, so we'll do our intros and then you guys just hang on a second. So welcome everybody. I thought we were going to get a lot better out here. All right, we'll see. So we're going to do the around the room. If you would, introduce yourselves. And the question of the evening is what is your favorite single piece of gear? I am Mark Mayer. I'm the PATC chair, and I think it's got to be the blue DMM offset nut that I didn't pay for because I scanned it as booty off of
My favorite single piece of gear, don't have much yet. Guess it's got
Not the pink dry can?
No, it's right there.
I'm like, let me check that in the table sheet.
Dedicate a ball bag to your footwear section.
There's probably not a large selection of mountaineering boots in your size, is there?
I'm Klaus. I think my favorite music video would be
I was about to say.
yeah, basically. I'm Sylvan, and my favorite piece of gear, I guess I really like
I'm Corey, I'm the treasurer, and I'll go with my TC Pro shoes.
Okay, so Corey, take it away. You're the presenter tonight, right? Are you
Something
both doing it? Okay. All right. So tonight's presentation is on Alpine Skills Weekend 2018. So take it away, guys.
Alrighty.
Who knows?
You'll have to wait till the end of the presentation to find out where they all are, class. Maybe it wasn't quite as successful as the year you went. Exactly. But welcome, folks. Talk about ASW Alpine Skills Weekend for this year. Myself, I participated in it last year as well, and Sylvan, you've done it a couple times, right? And just to give you guys a little overview, for anyone that's not familiar with Alpine Skills, is the goal of the weekend is to give people an introduction to different alpine and mountaineering skills in the winter elements, so potentially winter camping, and also the use of crampons and mountaineering axe, and just walking in your mountain boots and with crampons on, and how to navigate, as well as some other skills, possibly like traveling in rope teams, as well as building snow anchors, and then if conditions permit, to do a summit of Mount Washington in New Hampshire. With that, but I'll still talk about some of the prep we did for the Alpine Skills.
Okay, so we had 4 training hikes, I want to say. So 3 or 4 training hikes, and participants were also supposed to do training hikes on their own. That had really necessary really talk about how to prepare for the training.
So that was kind of leading up to it, and then we all met up on Thursday afternoon at the Visitor Center at Lincoln Notch, New Hampshire. And start out there, and there's Bill in the center, doing some orientation, showing where Washington is, where we're going to be going up it, just to get familiar with it. And then it's time to start hiking up. So then all of our giant packs full of stuffs. The weather up on Mount Washington can be quite variable in terms of that's what determines whether it's going to be a good summit day. What are the wind conditions like in terms of, is it reasonable to even hike up there? What's the visibility like? In terms of when we were walking up there that day, it did end up being some warmer conditions than we'd had in the past. And with that, it ended up being just people walking in was like one layer to get up there because it's just so warm. With that, we also had that last year a bit in terms of some really warm conditions that didn't really feel like winter, felt almost more spring-like with that. And there we go. So trudging up there, over here you can see people have for the people that are camping outside, they've got the extra pads strapped onto their packs for sleeping pads to double up to stay warmer off the snowpack. And so that 2 miles in to get up to the Harbor Cabin, which is the area where we sleep around, it's definitely a sustained hike that keeps it pretty strenuous with all the weight that everybody's carrying at that time. But then at the same time it's pretty warm, so some people drop some layers to manage the warmth, and people are traveling with different ways. We've got Lindsay here with going up in some snowshoes, and Jaime behind her wanted to try out pulling things in a sled, so he borrowed the sled to give that a go.
Is that the club pulp or just the sled?
You say that again?
Is that the pulp we bought for the club, or is that some of the stuff?
so. I think that's the pulp.
All right.
Okay.
Everything works slightly better than the one in.
Yeah, so that's all of his gear in the sled instead of carrying it in a big pack there. You don't see that, but it was a bit warm, so some people stripped down, just a little bit, so. That didn't happen.
Just in time.
Just in time for the shirtless portion of the presentation for that. But and then we were making our way up towards Harvard Cabin. People feel a little bit better once we're getting up towards that. And here is Harvard Cabin with the group this year. And so with that, some people stayed in the cabin, and then some of the group also did the winter camping. So show you some pictures from that. Sylvan, if you want to talk about the setup and the camping arrangements.
Yeah, so we had 7 people in the cabin, and the other 9 people were in the tent. Two people actually dropped out, so we actually ended up using one less cook tent, but the club had bought the second cook tent so that we could fit everyone in the tent for this year. We didn't end up needing it. But yeah, like when we improved our cook tent setup, you can still see how it's torn from being from last year when it was frozen to the ice and snow.
Learn from that.
Yeah.
Improvement.
Good.
We didn't bury the skirt, so like we had a lot more room in there and everything. But a little breezy, but it's okay. Other than that, like I guess it's pretty straightforward. You just make benches and everybody like shares maybe 3 or 4 stoves and shares hot water, and it's a good time hanging out at night, I guess.
Did both of you stay in tents?
Yeah, we were both
So
camping.
no one was in the cozy cabin?
What do you mean, no one?
I mean, y'all?
Us two?
Yes.
No. Neither of us were cozy. No, we're in the cozy tents.
We very much were not that cozy. Which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, but this is like, people are getting nice night shots and everything the first night. The snow is warm out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're in the way and you're trying to walk back to your tent and everything.
Photographers.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
That's a very unusual winter.
Yeah. The week before, like literally 5 days before that, I think Mount Washington had the coldest weather on the planet. Anywhere on the planet, it like record lows on Saturday. And then
5 days later, you
5 days later.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Welcome to Mount Washington. Yeah. With that. So that was Thursday. We walked up there, and then Friday was the itinerary was going to be our skills day. We went out for the day and practiced the crampons and axe skills and other alpine skills. But it was a little rainy and drizzly and kind of cold and wet that morning. But we suited up. We went out all covered up to try and stay dry-ish. There's everybody looking really pleasant and happy to be out there just getting dripped on. But we went through some skill stuff. Bill talked about use of the axe and ways to hold it and position it and how to walk with it and so on for that, and some practice with those skills. And then Eric was talking about stepping, different types of walking technique steps with the boots and working with crampons and such.
Hey, Corey,
Yep.
where did y'all do this? Is
Yeah,
that
where did you do
Where
This
is
is a
that?
backcountry skiing area.
Is that on the way to Hermit?
So,
So it's
Sort
not
of, because we
anywhere
actually ended
anywhere.
up there later. So it's on the way to Hermit Lake, or it'll get us there. But I don't remember exactly what it was. But yeah, we didn't go to the
We didn't go to
summer
the-
camps or anything. No, we didn't go to
Yeah.
No, because it was too
Wet.
uncertain with the weather and wet and stuff
It
like
was
that.
high avalanche conditions because of the
Oh,
rain.
right, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
So all the ravines were like considerable or something, like
Right.
it's
Yeah.
dangerous.
That makes sense.
So there's everybody taking a good step and practicing there. So we did that, but given the conditions of the wet and the snow being really soft and it not being super steep, it wasn't really possible to do any self-arrest or any of the other skills. So we just did those 2 skills and then headed up this trail that we're on, and basically just, got a little training hike in, something to do in the rain. And ended up at Hermit Lake at the shelter there, and everybody was pretty wet by that point, so we stopped for a little break and get something to eat and drink. We stepped inside the little area you can go inside the building here to warm up a little bit and have a little chat. And Sylvan, if you want to talk about what we decided to do then?
This was only around noon, and we decided that given the weather, we really weren't going to be able to stay out. We weren't really going to be able to practice self-arrest or like anchor building or rope travel travel, and decided just to go back to the tent, try to dry everything off, and like, try again the next day when like, things would actually be a bit better for. Were we going to say? I think we were just going to see what the weather was like the next day and see if we could get more skills in or summer day or whatever. But at this point, everybody's clothes are wet. So.
And how cold was it?
It wasn't super cold.
Yeah, because it was rain, so it was above freezing, so probably in the 30s. So not frigid, but not certainly warm. And then the streams melted. So anyone that's been up there also describe how it is that for getting water, if you're camping, there's a stream like out the back of the cabin. And you go down and there's literally a hole in the ice that's frozen over on the stream. You just like dunk your bottles in there to fill them up. So that's the frozen stream. Where you dunk your bottles in the hole, where there is no more ice, so it all melted away, so it made it a little bit more exciting to fill up your water bottles. But that's how warm it had gotten and how quickly the conditions were changing, just to give us a taste of some other things that would come. Something we don't have pictures of, but on the way back, walking back to the cabin from where you saw us last at Hermit Lake, because the warmer conditions, the melting that had happened, there was an area of the trail along up to the cabin that had melted, and basically we had to do a stream crossing and that had just appeared out of nowhere, and that was a little dicey. I mean, it was hit or miss how well you did going across. You know, it's kind of a question of were you going to go in up to your boot or up to like your hip, just depending where you stepped. And some people like literally like went like whole leg in, and some people not. And so yeah, but it was, people were trying different ways to go through it in different sections, but there wasn't any clean way to do it. So eventually we all got across through there. So after that we were, 10 people were just in the tents the rest of the day, or people hanging out in the cabin that were staying there. Here's a view in my tent, us hanging out trying to dry things out. So yeah, that was sort of the rest of that day. We did a little, got together at the cook tent a little bit later to get some food together.
Right, actually, like while 3 of them were in this tent, everybody else that was in the campsite bailed and like went into the cabin and like took off their clothes and dried it at the wood stove.
Oh, they let you do that?
Yeah, the guy.
That's
so
nice.
yeah, the caretaker.
I was
wasn't-
just gonna say it wasn't rich
It
for
wasn't
sure.
rich.
That's why you were able to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a substitute caretaker
And
named
for
Chris.
some reason, everybody that was supposed to be up there canceled, so like they had
Oh, wow.
lots of space. I
Yeah.
mean, it was because it was raining on a Thursday or Friday. and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, it was some difficult conditions with the rain, just everything being wet. Some other issues we ran into, like Eric, one of the mentors, had got basically a giant puddle in his tent that totally soaked his sleeping bag.
Oh.
So his -20 down sleeping bag was totally soaked, and he ended up going into the cabin to sleep there, so could somewhat dry out. But sort of dealing with conditions like that, you don't necessarily expect rain and such warm temperatures for that. So yeah, I was just sort of trying to dry everything out and see how that was going through the day. But then the next morning, kind of had to sort of see where things were and decide what to do. You want to talk about that?
So yeah, I think we actually decided. Did we decide the night before? Or
I guess we're going to kind of see.
Yeah, we talked about it the night before, but it was also really warm. Really humid. And most people's stuff did not dry out. So in the morning, we decided everybody is going to pack up. Club is going to pay for hotels down back in North Conway, and we would just do a summit push from the parking lot instead of what we normally do, which is start from Harvard Cabin and go back. So this is us packing up, sort of calling quits after trying to camp in the rain and getting everything soaked.
Yeah. Everything's covered in a coating of ice. It got wet, so there's my tripod. There's some hiking poles. What's that?
How is mine had this much water on it?
Well, you will see, my friend. You'll see.
To
To come. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
So, because everything's frozen, actually, like backpack straps stop working, like they're frozen solid. I've been tightening them.
So our tent lines totally frozen there.
Oh
See?
my God.
Do magic tricks. So, yeah. With that, so yeah, getting everything packed up. You know, wrapping up wet / frozen tents and just bundling them onto our packs and stuff like that. With that, but yeah, I mean, part of the reasoning for, I mean, as Sylvan mentioned, things weren't drying out. Also, we waited that morning until we got a forecast. You know, the rangers come and give a report. The caretaker gets a forecast, and it had been forecasted to stay basically like rainy that day. You know, and then that night it was going to drop to -10. So it was that extreme that was kind of one of the significant considerations of, you know, stay or go. It wasn't like, well, we could maybe dry some more stuff out today, it's just going to stay wet. We're not going to be able to, you know, potentially go out and do anything just based on the forecast information that we had. So we packed everything up for that. But, you know, you're packing stuff up, but it doesn't always have to be boring. You can have a beer while you're packing things up. And that's
We brought beer
too.
Those guys, you see the guys without the shirts? Probably.
I came too late, yeah.
I was guessing the shirtless guys on the They were on screen when you came in.
We can bring it back up if you want. Email
No, it's
it to
okay.
you if you want.
I've seen enough shirtless guys. I'm okay.
Yeah. With that. So then we talked about the stream crossing the day before. So now it was larger,
Wow.
and we had to go back.
Wow.
And actually there was some issue when the rangers coming in to give the reports and stuff like had trouble, got stuck. I don't know. They had some issues like themselves getting across. So
Is it a tire rut?
wait, what's that?
Is that a tire rut for them? On the water
It
level?
could be. It could be. Yeah. So what folks found were a way through the woods, and then some other people, like in advance of us, had put down some branches. So basically found a less wet place so you kind of step across to get across the other side.
So, is that the little spur that goes off the main fire road to the harbor cabin that we just saw?
This?
Yeah.
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 So this is not far. This is not far from the cabin.
It's normally like this wide.
Just
It's
a
like,
wee
oh,
little-
look up at it. It's a wee brook.
Yeah.
Delicate little trickle
Exactly.
of moisture.
Basically.
Not now for that.
So every time we had to do one of these crossings with the sled, most of the time we have to basically take the sled apart and people would carry individual components.
Oh, man. What?
So yeah, so there's, I mean, in terms of like sled mechanics, so Jaime's got it attached with the poles crossed and he's got a harness on, so that keeps it stabilized. And then Lindsay in the back there has is kind of guiding it like the rudder with that. So they work as a team going downhill for that. But yeah, some more images of kind of, so we had multiple of these little stream crossings, just different areas. There were many little sections where like little snow bridges or things that melted out. So different ways, like Sylvan said, sometimes we had to unpack stuff, sometimes you could just sort of, pass it from one person to another to get it down and across. Representing with the PATC flag. So another little stream crossing, so a little balance beam action there to get across. More another melted stream here. Keep this one in mind for later. Come back to this area here. But yeah, it's just sort of little ice stone hopping to get everybody across and kind of taking that time to get through. And so it's a little bit of a slow process to come down. And you can see how that stream in the back, that river is totally melted in terms of just seeing how, a couple of days before is just, effectively totally frozen over there. Here we are back at the visitor center. We come down that day, just going over the game plan. Everybody's just going to go back to the hotel and dry out and then and rest up for the next morning. For that, so just getting everything squared away. And then, something you want to talk about next morning?
So the next morning we started at 6 a.m. I think the goal is to meet at 6 a.m. at the visitor center. And it was pretty cold. I think it was 0 or 1 degree. So, but everyone had very light packs. We left most of our things in the cabin, sprawled out to dry. So it was pretty cold when we started out, and it was dark, and the backpack bags of stuff. And if you can see, like, just from the condensation or something, like your hair would start turning white from.
It's not because the trip was aging us.
Yeah. It was cool.
So you'd be forgiven for thinking so. Because we didn't actually do the self-arrest skills, and we actually skipped a lot of skills this Alpine Skills weekend, we wanted to make sure that people had self-arrest skills if they were going to try to go up the summit. So we found a steep section of the trail, and we just started pushing people down and giving them ice tests, and be like, this is how you stop and practice. So after that, this is the ice step again.
Yeah.
So ice reformed. We could do the ice step this time around. People had crampons on, and so this is just us going up the ice step. There's a rope there you can sort of see to help people get up, but there's a bit of a line because it's a pretty delicate series of moves. It's maybe like a 20-foot sort of slabby ice climb or something.
Wow.
Because it all melted, it was just literally everything was just covered in a very thin sheet of ice, so there wasn't like a lot to kick into or anything like that. It was just, it's kind of, you're seeing the rock and dirt and road formations there, and everything is just coated in just thin ice there. So yeah, people using their crampons, their axes there to get up.
Yeah, nobody fell.
Nope, nobody got up. So yeah, we continued up after that, continued up the steep parts there. You can see with things having melted, you can actually see the boards or the posts that are kind of used to make steps there that I hadn't seen in the past. The further we got up, the less snow we saw. So now we're above tree line, and you can even see like trail markings on the rocks, which I hadn't seen before because I didn't actually see the rocks with that. Yeah, so see that the cairns are mostly covered there. You can see a lion's head in the distance in the top right there that we're working towards.
The weather, we're really lucky with the weather. It was really sunny, everyone was really warm and pretty comfortable. Usually it's pretty windy by this point. Once you get above tree line, you're dealing with lower visibility and you have to wear goggles, and we didn't have to deal with any of that.
As we're see a closer view of Lion's Head there. Eric there in the front is pointing over to the ravine to the left, and to show you a shot of that. There was actually a couple days prior, due to the weather conditions, a massive avalanche right here. Going in a little bit tighter, you can see a little bit of the debris down here. It sort of came down, and with sort of seeing the little pebble-sized things from that far away, you can imagine like how big those chunks must be, down there. We ran into someone that was familiar with it and said it's something like maybe like the largest avalanche that had happened there or something, but it was pretty massive with what had come down there. So we had a view of that. Here at Lion's Head, taking a break. See really crazy.
You took your crampons off by this point, right?
Not yet. Because there are still some icy bits. As you can see, there's not a lot, but there were still some like bits of ice here and there. That's the summit back here with that. And then we continue on. You can see looking the other way, again, the lack of snow anywhere in the area. Yeah, some trails. Could have been over there for some snow. Gone over there and done some self-arrest. But you can see there's still some ice, so we did still have our crampons on and little patches of snow. So nothing too much, but approaching the summit cone in the background there, you can see a couple other folks going up over there, which is where we're headed. And there we are on the summit cone. So this is really the most snowy part we had, like the most alpine bit of that, going up that steep part there.
The snow is pretty crusty. We do run into a lot of rock in between, so it's pretty rough in mountain roads.
it's pretty comfortable for me.
Gotcha.
So after that point, so coming up the summit cone, and then this is that split rock, then we did take our crampons off because after this point there was effectively no more snow to have to deal with. But there's another break here. Because it was nicer conditions, we were overall taking a bit more of a casual pace, or didn't have to sort of push through bad weather or wanting to get off the mountain or anything. So we took a little slower progress as we continued on. But as we continue up, you see basically it's just a rock scramble after that, all the way up to the summit.
Were there many people out there that day?
There were a decent amount. I mean, it wasn't crazy crowded, but there was like going up, there was definitely people coming down and stuff. I wouldn't say it was a mob, but it wasn't empty yet.
No, there were actually 50 people that went up before us.
Oh, that's true. We saw in the sign-in book at the visitor center, there was a group of 50 from the Naval Academy.
Yeah, Naval.
Who had gone up at like 4 a.m. or something. But actually, they didn't make it up. We ran into them, like when we were going up, we ran into chunks of them coming back down, and it wasn't entirely clear. They turned around at some point, and it might have been the ice step or something. We're not sure. Like there's something they were worried they couldn't get back down or something, so they actually didn't get up there. But yeah, so there were some groups that started really early. But yeah, definitely other people out on the mountain. So up at just before the summit here. And sometimes the hardest part, is that final summit push, when you got to go up the road. It can be hard. So that's what we train for. That's what we train for. So
Pile out the cars and walk.
exactly. I was like, this was a road? I went up it last year. I was like, it's normally just like an ice sheet. So yeah, there you go.
No rhyme. No.
Nothing.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So that sign is the
It's
summit.
like summer.
Yeah, so there's our summit shot.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great summit shot.
Look at the flag, it's not even blowing.
A lot of pictures were taken to get this one.
That's great.
But I've got the official status with temperature of 4 degrees, so pretty balmy.
Very
A little light 14-mile-an-hour wind. So it's just
Very
like
nice.
very.
Perfect day. Did you walk down the road?
We did not. We wandered around on the top for a bit. But yeah.
So that's their giant ice plow with world's worst weather.
Yeah. Good thing we had that.
Sunny
Blue
day.
sky. Okay, so we have like comparison shots between like 2018 and 2016. So this is Tuckerman's Ravine from the top, and this
Yeah.
is
Wow,
what
that was
it
already
looks like. Yeah. And the summit building where we're hanging out.
Yeah.
That's what it's.
That's sure.
Hey, that's someone who didn't make it now.
I think that was
Still
me.
there.
I think that was me praying to God.
Yeah.
Well, because all the rain, I guess. But did it get cold like they expected?
I mean, it got cold, but I think when it was the rain and the warmer temperatures, I think it just washed it all away. It just got warm enough up there. There was a point that day before where there was actually an inversion where it was colder down below and warmer up on the summits. I think that contributed to the heavy melting and stuff to produce these conditions. So yeah, going back down, we just reversed our steps down our rock scramble. This is going out towards Lion's Head. And then back down off, heading back down towards tree line with that, but pretty straightforward. And we did, put on our crampons back once we got into the little icy bits. You can see this is mid-afternoon. Sun's getting a little bit lower, so as we go into the trees, we're going to be going back into the shade, so getting a little chillier as opposed to the direct sun conditions. There's getting back onto the Lion's Head Trail. Getting back down through the steep parts there, but then, like happened also last year, we ran into a little bit of a traffic jam. If you remember back to the ice stack where we had to carefully go up it with the rope and stuff like that, basically everybody, heading down at the end of the day gets jammed up there because it's really slow going down there, people trying to navigate that. So we spent a lot of time standing, waiting, probably what, at least an hour?
Wow.
Just like standing there. There's a lot of like not moving, like put on all your layers and just stand there.
If you can tell, those are the belay layers, and I think most people didn't wear them at all until this point.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Summer.
Yeah, rather than not moving.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, you can see just the snaking line there, waiting.
Did you guys bypass on the left?
We bypassed on the left. I think one or two guide groups did that first.
Mm-hmm.
There were some clients of theirs that were kind of impatient, and one who people said smelled a bit of alcohol and tried to like push past us, which was unpleasant. And then, but eventually the guy came back and said, "Okay, my group, we can come down now and set up a road for you guys to bypass the line." And that's what things up a little bit. But
Yeah, so it's, Sylvan said, so we ended up doing there. So the ice step that you saw us come up is over climber's left in this picture. And so we put a rope static that Bill had with him around the tree there, and then just did an arm wrap to lower ourselves down there. And then that also effectively made 2 lanes of traffic, because we could go down there and then other people could continue to work going down the ice step there. So that was also kind of, in terms of something to, and for the future, maybe plan to do from the get-go, right? You know, in terms of just once we're able to get access to that, just plan to go down there. I think here it was more, since other people did it, we eventually decided to go ahead and do that ourselves, but otherwise we had just been sort of waiting in line to go down the regular way. So you can see people coming down here, and again using the arm wrap and then maybe a rope underneath for some more friction there to slow the descent. And then we were back down to the main trail and just walked it back out and went back down. And yeah, so again, we did a full, parking lot to parking lot in one day with that. It ended up being a pretty full day. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we took a slower pace and stuff. We weren't rushing along, so it made a good day of it there. But if you remember earlier when we were leaving to spend our day trying stuff out, we went across one part where stuff was all melted. We were kind of hopping across on rocks. Notice now, this is that same area, now it's all frozen over. So just in a day, it's gone from, a moving stream, open water to, being heavily frozen over there. So fast changing conditions there. So that was our adventure. Thank you guys very much.
All right.
Folks, have
Thank
any
you.
questions? You're quite welcome.
So how long did it take you car to car? I know you go at a relaxed pace.
I think it's like 10 hours.
you think we finished
With
by
an
4?
hour waiting probably, right?
I think so. 3 or 4. Start at maybe 6, 6:30, so 4, 4:30. So yeah, I think it's probably 10 hours.
Yeah.
Could have definitely done it faster if we, had to push ourselves or not. But yeah. All right. Thanks, folks.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Sylvan. Okay, so that was ASW 2018. Do we need to take a quick break, or are we ready to continue?
I was just going to turn the lights on.
Okay.
I'm not leaving.
So let me go through a few other things. We had this topic of maybe a directed discussion. Nobody's asked any questions, but I have something to discuss anyway. So some quick thoughts. Carter Rock is about to open. The standard Carter Rock time is about to come up again.
It's that Carter Rock time of year.
And as I mentioned in a previous meeting, I've discovered one of the unofficial duties of PATC MS chair is to answer the phone and listen to people complaining about what people do at Carter Rock.
And then you delegate
That's
that?
John Gregory's job. That's not your job.
No. His job is to complain about people at Carter Rock. My job is to be complained to about people at Carter Rock. Whether they have anything to do with us or not, it doesn't apparently matter. So things that I have heard, just note for yourself, for others. Number one, be careful with throwing ropes and dropping stuff. So, the ropery thing is not to tie your anchor at the top, pull your rope, throw it over the cliff, and then yell rope and look down and see if anybody was there. There have been various complaints of, people throwing ropes or other gear.
Patsy people? Patsy people?
I didn't say it was Patsy people, I just said
Almost inconceivable.
almost, but not entirely. Second thing, when talking about people building anchors, it's hard to think of any place at Carter Rock where you would be unable to tie a completely standard textbook to anchor point BHK and the middle anchor out of static line. So why anybody would do anything else and thus cause controversy, it's hard for me to imagine, because I can't think of any location there that would require or even be facilitated by doing anything other than 2 anchor points and a BHK. So just keep it simple. One thing that has shown up a couple times, and I think it has even occurred with people in PATC, is that you set an anchor and then people decide to do a climb right next to it and then one next to that, and then at some point somebody has generated the potential for a big swing. And there have been accidents and people have been injured taking swings. And there's certainly a couple places where it seems completely logical to, oh yeah, I'll just come over here. But then if you peel off, you might swing into a dehedral. There's certainly places where you could easily set an anchor that would result in a dehedral swing or some other unfortunate situation. And finally, be nice to the newbies, especially on the first Wednesdays. Wear your shirt. Look for people who are poking around. We should have some good seminars. Financial report, Mr. Treasurer. There you are.
Busy.
Please.
Can that be like documented somewhere, just sent out to everybody? Like,
Yeah, sure.
hey, we're starting out the season again. Here are a few reminders and refreshers.
Yeah, that's why I put it in the agenda, but I'll send it out.
I think that's a good
Okay.
reminder. If you never do those things. And we're kind of short.
Excuse me?
We get shirts.
But we don't have them here.
Yeah, Gearmeister. Ask Gearmeister.
But you know what? I can bring some out for the first Wednesday.
Yeah.
And
Good idea.
then just sell them there.
Mhm.
If you have a batch of books that
Yeah,
are
good
given
luck.
you, bring those too.
They're
Yes.
ends, so they've got collars that come up to here.
Cutting.
Yeah, we have to, you definitely have to pin to the Patsy shirt. If you're, I'm gonna be dazzled on
All right, things are in good shape for our budgets. We've currently got a total of $18,670.41. For that, paid any current bills and stuff like that. I paid out one of the grants.
Okay, one of them's been paid out. Okay.
And yeah, so I haven't been in touch with the other people yet.
Okay.
So
They all know though.
yeah,
Because I told
yeah,
them.
you sent the email, and,
Mhm.
and then I've heard from John Gannon, but he's out of country, so he said he'd be back in touch in April. I haven't heard from Jaime and Lindsay.
Oh, really?
Yet. So I might just check.
Okay.
But yeah.
I'll take them if you don't mind.
Okay, let's see. As far as interacting with Patsy Maine, are you guys having any problems with giving them their data or anything?
No, I'm just giving them the monthly statements
Okay.
for PayPal and with the
Okay.
bank and clarifying if they
Okay.
have questions about what the expenses are, but nothing
Okay.
else has come up.
All right. Be aware too, I don't remember exactly when it is, but at some point during the year, they'll going to ask not only for about money, but about budget.
Okay.
And we sort of threw that together at the last minute, but it is our responsibility to give them a budget, which even though it's meaningless, we still have to do it.
Okay.
Let's see, members, secretary.
364 total with 12 new in the last 30 days.
Ooh, cool. That's good. Okay, past activities. There haven't been a pile, but there's a few. A lot of people went to URay. I don't think we talked about URay last time. Comments on URay?
It was awesome.
Okay.
Can you?
Can I
elaborate?
Really awesome?
It was like really awesome.
Uh-huh.
So that was my first time ice climbing.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of had an idea going in what it would be like, but it's just getting the nuances down. And especially the guys that were there were fantastic mentors.
You and Jade?
So Jade and I were both new.
Okay, all right. And did you guys stay in this? Did everybody in the same motel that they've been staying at before?
The Comfort Inn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And are they still shuttling from the airport?
I don't believe so.
Okay. How did you get there from the airport?
We rented a car.
You did.
Yeah.
From
Okay.
Rose?
All right, because they were shuttling before, but I know they
I
got
think
into
it's
new
new
ownership.
ownership,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so that may have been gone.
Yeah, so there was no shuttle. We climbed for most of the days. Jays and I took an extra day off of climbing than what the other guys did. And then, of course, there was the day trip out to Telluride, and then a more relaxed day of cross-country skiing in Ironside.
Okay.
And back to climbing on Monday.
All right.
So how long were you there total?
7 days?
How long was the recovery period?
It's a good question.
Still going.
Honestly, so the morning after the first day of climbing was the hardest of the whole week. Just the whole like, oh God, I'm just not used to moving in these ways. Moving after sleeping in a nice comfy bed is so difficult. But each morning after that was much easier. As you got used to the elevation and the activity levels.
Oh, is that, what elevation is that?
It's in the mountains of Colorado.
Yeah, you know, it's not.
Got it.
The standard Colorado mountain elevation?
It's
Which
not
everyone
super high,
knows.
but it's like 8,000.
Okay.
It's. I think it's around it. It's between 7 and 8. It's,
Yeah,
like-
somewhere.
it's enough to have a little bit of a.
There were times when I felt like it kind of felt
So
I
like-
didn't have any ophthalmic migraines, which I started to get at the top of the Rocky Mountain National
Like
Park
12.
a couple of years later.
Yeah. That's not so bad.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And you know, I think we've been talking about the endless problems with doing new ice climber stuff. And I'm just going to start recommending if you really want to be a new ice climber, just
Erie
go
is
to
a
Erie.
great place for your new
Right.
ice climbing.
Yeah,
It's so
it's
completely
just
superior
that-
to every other
It's
alternative.
the-
It's the airfare though,
I
and
know.
I'm thinking of all the people that don't know if they're gonna like it, and really you can't go out there for a weekend.
No.
No.
One way to
Makes
drop
sense.
the airfare down would be to drive out there, but then that's 4 days each
Right.
way.
And then-
Flying for one day and then
And
go back.
considering who you're with, that's gonna be a long, long 8 days.
Yeah.
So long.
We had our other ice climb. We had our actual new ice climbers already, right?
No.
Well, sort of. We'll come.
It was on the calendar.
Yeah.
That time came and
So
passed.
next item, we'll come to it. We'll come to it. Next item, Dak's house. Who's there? Corey's there. Okay.
Yeah.
And how was it?
It was great. I showed up a little late, so I missed most of the first day. But we kind of split into one big group of 8 of us that all just went and set up like 4 top ropes and ran laps at various cracks. And then a couple of other groups of 2s and 4s that went and kind of tooled around in some more backcountry areas. But it was great. I thought the house was awesome. Thank you for finding that.
You're welcome.
It was, parking was awesome, location was great, like you were 30 minutes or less from any climb you wanted.
Right.
And I think, at least in my opinion, I think the highlight was probably Poco on the last day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I heard that was fun.
Yeah, we went up to Poco and they have some super long routes there, like a full 70-meter rope. You know, if you're leading it, so we just tied 2 ropes together and top roped it. And that was a lot of fun. I mean, they were cool routes.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, it's a nice half-day finish.
Well, we have that house for next year.
Okay.
She's
Excellent.
already reserved.
Already
it,
done?
And it's
Wonderful. Okay.
it's done.
And I take it we didn't have a problem with never getting our deposit back or any of
Well,
that
there was no
foolishness.
deposit.
Okay. Well.
And she, and
So that
she-
makes it
but-
easy. But did we get it back? No.
We did. Well, I did.
All zero.
And I spent it. No, what she said was, the caretaker said it was, the house was in, and I'm quoting here, perfect condition.
Oh, well, she should see some pictures of what we were hanging.
No, I'm not going to show them the pictures of all of the ice axes on the mantle. I was looking at these as I was in Orlando going,
It was like, I was scared of how nice the house was, because they had some really nice stuff in it too.
that's what I thought. She
Like
was
really nice
so laid
artwork.
back.
And the library had some very expensive books.
Do they still have very expensive books there?
I did not take any.
We
of
had to
their-
get a fire going somehow.
Yeah, anyway, she
So
was.
they had some very expensive kindling in the library.
Very expensive actually, some first edition Kindle.
Oh, sign first, yeah. She was a very laid-back host, and wants us to come back and love the group.
Cool.
So,
Great house.
I think this group has gotten a lot classier and responsible in the past 5 years. I just am beside myself.
just because we're not drunk yet.
I can't imagine. It's amazing.
All right.
Are you disappointed?
Other.
A little.
Have we let you down then?
Did no one boulder on the pool table? Like I
There
don't
was,
know.
There was no pool table.
there was the bizarre
Well, see?
knee hockey, right? There was some.
There were some pull-up competitions on the molding.
Yeah, okay.
Right, that I heard was, that helped.
It was
So
fine.
that was good, and there was
Start barking
a,
in the hot tub.
there was a,
There was no
wasn't
hot
there a
tub.
pet rescue, something dog vest that's
Oh, yeah.
Emotional support.
emotional support, people wore that, apparently. Pictures also that the landlord never saw. So, yeah, you know, just not destructive, but still shenanigans.
Exactly. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
I got hurt.
People found out in the cabin there are like 2 bouldering routes that are like officially set in the cabin, like from the rafters.
Oh.
Like it's in their cabin book.
I want to go to the cabin.
All right. Any local climbing happen? Any local climbing happen to be reported?
We
did a
went to
bunch of
Great
fire
Falls.
off.
A bunch of us went to
Okay.
Great Falls on Saturday.
It was in Hard Rocks.
It was
Okay.
cold, really
Good.
cold.
I went to Franklin on Saturday.
All right.
How was it?
It was good. We tried to go to Riverbend,
Uh-huh.
but I don't know if anybody's ever been there. I've never been there before, but there's a cable you have to take to get
Oh,
across
right,
the river.
the Fairly,
Yeah.
no, I can't
No,
remember the word.
it's just like a cable, and it
Yeah.
has, it's supposed to have like 3 or 4 pulleys on it,
And it, doesn't it
and there's
cost
only
money?
one pulley.
Oh, doesn't it cost money to
So, if anybody goes out there, bring a pulley. Leave it.
Add a pulley.
So we
All
didn't
right.
do that.
Let's see. Let's talk about upcoming events. We were going to have a new Ice Climbers Day, and then we did not because
We were actually had a
weekend.
whole
Yes,
weekend
excuse me. You're
planned.
right. Weekend, and we did not because it was assumed everything was going to melt out because winter was over, and then it came back.
Which is probably good because there was a nor'easter anyway, so
Right.
probably people couldn't have gotten up there. Although, yeah, there was a nor'easter. So.
Where was that going to be, on some decks?
No, that was going to be in North Conway.
Yeah.
Oh, I did see that.
Mhm. Now, on the other hand, Lindsay and Andy did their own new ice climber weekend, which was the following weekend. There was that this past weekend, which I
Yeah, and
understand
that
went
was
off
in the
pretty well.
decks.
And that went pretty well, yes?
The pictures looked okay, you know, they had ice and
Mhm.
seemed fun.
Okay, other things coming up. Whitetail Snow Skills Day is currently scheduled for a week from Saturday on 3/24. And we have a few people signed up for it. It's probably going to happen 3/24, but it's possible it could go even another week later because there's
Wow.
maybe even more snow potentially showing up. So,
They're getting the snow, right? We're in a snow
dead
hole.
zone.
well, we were, and then the thing is, there's another storm potential next week,
Like Tuesday, right?
next
Here?
Tuesday.
Yeah.
yes.
So, yeah, so
Right.
yesterday
Yes.
they were saying it was going to snow Monday, Tuesday. I checked today. It was
It
going
was
to
raining.
rain.
Yeah, I saw that
it's,
today
it's a
too.
very, I mean, you know,
Where's my snow days? They moved to the East Coast and I get no snow days.
you're never going to predict with that many days out.
Really
accurate.
rain.
I
But-
know.
But there is very likely to be some sort of a storm action Monday, Tuesday. And if it's warm enough, that's the end of their season.
Right.
If it's cold enough, it might add a week. If it's really warm enough, it might be the end of our event too, for all I know.
Right, so it'll just be
Right.
dirt.
It'll just be
Get up
dirt,
there.
Some snow skills and dirt.
but
Dirt skills.
Sure.
But anyway, that's currently scheduled for 3/24, and we're getting ready for that. There is a trail work weekend at Seneca on 31 March, which I believe Andy is
I'm
heading
going.
up. Are you going?
I'm signed
Good.
up. 31st of March,
Okay, so
trail work at Seneca.
there is
Andy's
going to be we have down a TR Anchors 1 April. Who's going to lead that?
Marty.
Marty's going to lead that, okay?
On April Fool's Day?
Yep.
Yes.
Is that it?
That would be the fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a first Wednesday thing? Or?
No. The first Wednesday is April 4th.
Are we doing a clinic still
April
for
1st
that?
and Sunday.
We are.
It's
Okay.
not April 1st, it's I thought it was
I have down, I
I
checked.
thought Marty just sent a whole list of things he was
Well,
doing,
that was-
isn't it?
that was
with
the first Wednesday